right, I'm hitting record, as the lady just said. All right, 3, 2, 1, here we go. Hello, and welcome to the Gonzo Experience. I am David Gonzo Mamano. So excited that you're joining us today. Very, very blessed and honored that you're sharing some heartbeats with us. I got a great guest today. I was introduced to him by a mutual friend, Andy Biding. Andy, thank you for this great introduction to my guest, who is Bill Gallagher. Bill, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me on. Glad to be with you.
Very excited to have you here. You are defined as a scaling up coach, right? You do many other things, and you do your own podcast, and I really want to dig into that. We have a great mutual friend, Vern, who started EO back in the day, Entrepreneurial Organization, and then he's kind of like Madonna. He's had a couple of reinventions over the years, right? Gazelles, scaling up, right?
Well,
and
I'd like to see him sing like a virgin.
I think it's too late. Too late for that, and Vern is just a tremendous human being and has done so much for the entrepreneurial world, and he's created really just a great tribe of people like you that are bringing it to the next level. And you know, the reason I called you a few months ago is Andy Biding had said that you were like the scaling up coach, like the big one. So I had to reach out to you and say hello. And I found out that you have a podcast. I have a podcast. So let's trade podcasts. So welcome to the show. Bill, I want to get into the, kind of the strategies of scaling up and what you personally do to help entrepreneurs grow their business. And I also want to talk a lot about, as you work with entrepreneurs, what are some of their common bottlenecks, stucks, roadblocks, whatever you want to call them, from getting to the next level? And I'm guilty of this. A lot of entrepreneurs will be really good at launching the business, right? The crazy mad scientists, right? That is very difficult for other people to do. But then it gets to a certain level, and many entrepreneurs, once again, including myself, we get to a certain level and we just kind of stop growing. And why is that? What can we do to bring that to or get it to the next level? So, but Bill, what I want to ask you is, how did you get started in your entrepreneurial journey? I mean, I read in your bio that you were a paper boy in Hawaii. Was that the genesis of it all? Or
well, I think that's certainly a beginning. Early childhood kinds of things are where you start to notice that you have some hustle in some regard. Paperboy in Hawaii, I think the big lesson there was, and looking back on it, it's remarkable how many people will try to what's the word? Like not pay the paper boy. In those days and in that place, the paper boy had to collect the money, and the money that I got was the difference between what the homeowner paid me and what I paid the paper company. So there was it was a little business there. And there would be people who try to skate out of their bill, pretend they're not home and that kind of thing, so they didn't have to pay me. Like, I was a freaking 9-year-old boy. Like, what the hell? Like, on my bicycle, throw the paper, right? So for younger listeners, a newspaper is a thing that somebody like on a bicycle or a car would bring to your house. And what that was like the internet, and they would print it every day. And then every day they'd give you the internet on pieces of paper that you would read and then throw away or put under your cat box or whatever. And then they'd print a new internet every day with the next news of the next day, right? So that's what a newspaper is. And then later in high school, I was involved in other kinds of businesses, and we'll leave that alone for right now. But then in college, when I couldn't get into a journalism class, I decided to start a newspaper. And so I hit up my family and grandparents and for some money to get my newspaper started. And I started a free arts newspaper in Las Vegas back in the day. So that was maybe the first more legit, like real adult business, with contracts and things like that.
Bill, I think we're as I say, brothers from another mother. I mean, I had my neighborhood paper route And, same thing, having to deal with deadbeats at an early age. And then, right after college, a couple of years after college, I actually started, I didn't start a newspaper. I started a magazine called Next Step. It was a free magazine to high school students. We'd help them with college and career planning. Gave it out free in bulk at the high schools. And we'd make our money by selling ads. I'm sure that's what you did with your arts newspaper, right? So
I worked up and down the streets in the area around the university and in kind of the hipper areas, and I sold ads to people, and I made a mock-up of the newspaper before we'd even published it. And I said, we're launching this thing, and I want to get you in the first issue. And I forget what it was, but it was like you can buy a quarter page, you can buy a full page, like whatever, and I sold the hair salon, the shoe store, all the different places the record store, places like that were cool and going to be in my newspaper for my people.
That is awesome. So I'm 52, or plus or minus a little bit. Are we around the same age?
I'll be 57 in
wow.
next month.
You look good. I was thinking I was going to insult you and like, David, I'm 45. I mean, you look pretty young if you guys are watching this. So, So when I go and speak to high school and college students about entrepreneurship, I kind of do the same thing. I'm like, are you selling a magazine? Now a magazine is, same thing, right? And it's, even I don't read magazines anymore. It's sad, right? So I listen to podcasts and books on tape. That's how I spend my spare time. But so great. So what launched you into your kind of like your first official business?
Then from the newspaper, I went into sales and marketing, and I worked on the corporate side for a few years. And I grew, I started a new part of a new segment of business at Sprint, and then I grew that piece of business, that segment over 550 million.
Wow.
And I was 27. After doing all of that, it's funny. At the time, I really thought like it was more me than just being, a vehicle nudging on things. I really thought it was more of my thing that had built that $550 million business. And I was a little full of myself, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to go. And so I started a consulting practice that then moved into a market research firm. And then eventually I got kind of acqui-hired by one of my clients. And then I started in as a partner in a group of radio stations. So the beginning of it was being in a corporate job and thinking I could do this. The humbling lesson of that was when I didn't represent a $550 million business behind a multi-billion-dollar business that was a household brand name, people weren't returning my phone calls. And before then I thought people talk to me all the time because I'm awesome and I'm smart and I'm super likable. And then I went out on my own and the truth is I went out on my own because I got fired because I was an asshole. And I was I was like really obnoxious not to everyone, but to some of the people that I worked with, one of whom through a turn of affairs became my boss.
Oh, geez. Yeah.
Pretty short-lived after. Yeah, I had like belittled the person. I talked to them and treated them like they were stupid and they were more than 10 years older than me. I had I did have a good understanding of my business, the piece of it, and they did not, but talking to them in that way was what got me fired. And so that was a lesson that took me a little while to learn. And then going out on my own was the next lesson. Like, oh, wait a minute. I have a fax machine. A fax machine is another one of those things from the past, right? That was important to do business at the time. But
yeah, I think it's in the Smithsonian now, right? So yeah.
Yeah. With a little curly paper that would disappear the moment you left it in the heat. Yep. But first of all, the notion that I should go out in the business that I had and that it would be easy were both things taken away from me very quickly. And I was humbled, but I did manage to make it because I did have something, but those were good maturing lessons along the way, to remind me of there's value in others' contributions and things like that, how to play nice with people.
Sure. Have you stopped? Have you learned to not be an asshole anymore?
I'm not sure that I'll ever get over that. There are definitely moments, maybe not daily, but perhaps daily, where I'm still a little full of myself and
Uh,
self-absorbed and pushy, and
yeah, yeah.
yes.
There should be a school how to like unasshole yourself or something, right? Or at least a course, unasshole 101. I mean, I know a lot of assholes that should take that class. So
They come and we speak every language. We come in all shapes and colors.
yeah.
Some some countries have words for them like chutzpah, which is like a proud way of saying, "Well, I'm an asshole, but I like do it on purpose."
You're a Jewish asshole. You're a chutzpah. That's funny. Well, so far you've been really nice to me, so I appreciate that.
They're
So,
still
so when did you start working with Vern and the whole scaling up enterprise?
So I was a member about 22 years ago with what was then YEO, and I had a software and two tech companies actually at the time. And my wife was also a member, and she had a jewelry business, and she started going through Vern's Birthing a Giants program, and I kind of learned over her shoulder, and then through the EO organization got. So at first it was YEO and my wife and Vern, and then over time got closer and closer to it. And we applied a lot, but not all of those Rockefeller habits, the kind of the precursor to the whole scaling up framework in our business. And I did a lot, and then in 2009 and 10, I did most of them. And that led to me being able to exit the business. So between 2005, 2010, I started to level up as a coach, doing some coaching on the side and evenings and weekends and when I could. And then I started to get serious about putting in all of the Rockefeller habits, and especially getting tight on the execution side. And that led to my being able to step back from the business. And then at 2013, I went full time as a coach and started coaching at first just CEOs and only using a little bit of the scaling up. And then after the first year, I decided it was better really to coach the whole exec team and to push deeper in the org and to kind of fully embrace the scaling up framework. So from 2013 until now, it's been full-time scaling up coaching and like that.
So tell me, I know about it, but give our the Gonzo family here kind of the overview of what the scaling up program does.
Well, so scaling up is a growth framework. It's a best of growth framework. It's built on and assembling the best ideas around business, around four big decision areas. But the point of it is to help companies grow. So there are things around all different parts of business and different stages of business. We're not particularly focused on startup. We're not focused on big mature companies. We're in that in-between stage where you're trying to get from startup, and we call that scale up. We deal with helping people get the teams right, all the people decisions right, attract, retain people, get them working together well. That's the people. We help them get the strategy dialed, a differentiated, simple strategy that's actually driving growth. We help them get execution in right, so there's not so much drama, so that there's high profitability. And then we work on improving the cash model so they're more self-funding and don't have to go as often outside to raise money to fund the growth of the business. So those are the four big decision areas of scaling up. And then over time, I've started to put particular focus and build a body of work. It really actually started back in before 2005, but around the fifth decision that I like to call the leadership aspect of it. Who are you and how do you lead all of those areas that undermines your best intentions and desires or supports them? And that's the area that I put more into, where we've developed an actual flywheel for leaders to scale their leadership style.
So tell me more about. I love the visual of a leadership flywheel. Tell me more about that.
So first of all, what's a flywheel, right? A flywheel is a large circular mass that stores energy. You spin up a flywheel. It's very heavy. It's hard to get moving, but you add a little to it and you add a little to it. And after a while, there's a great deal of velocity. And flywheels can be used in different mechanical systems to build and store energy. And once they get going, boy, it's really hard to get in their way. So Jim Collins talked about a business flywheel and how we build and reinforce and figure out something that builds this momentum over time. It's a brilliant thing. You can go read more about that flywheel. So mechanical flywheel, business flywheel. The leadership flywheel is based on, it's got 4 parts to it, but it's really based on the notion that as a leader, we've got to keep scaling our style and approach to leadership as our business grows, as our team size grows, or we either pull the business down to our own level, right? The place we're comfortable at, or we inhibit it, or we thwart it, or it ejects us because the business is just running away and we're cast aside as just another clueless founder who didn't know what they had, right? So we want to figure out and develop an approach to our leadership that keeps building on itself and develops leaders of leaders of leaders, right, who go out. So that's the leadership flywheel. It's got 4 big parts: inspire, engage, planning, and coaching. So if you think about it, so the first thing that a leader's job is to do is to make you feel good about something, inspire you, right? What's the point of inspiration? We're lit up, we feel good, there's a positive emotional outcome, and inspirational leaders do this often naturally, but there are things that any kind of leader could do that will cultivate and bring out this positive emotional state, the first piece of it. So one of them is sharing a vision for the future. Another one is a really bold stand. Being really responsible and vulnerable is also inspiring. So there's a variety of things that we can do to create this positive emotional state. That's the inspire stage. So now I'm lit up. Ooh, you've lit me up about something. You're lit up. I'm lit up. We're all lit up, but we don't know what to do with it. That's where engage comes in. So in engage, we want people to translate a general positive feeling into a specific opportunity for themselves and say yes to something. So this is where selling, negotiating, getting people to say yes and take action is the next piece of it. So we're translating a general positive emotion into commitment and action. Selling, hiring, all kinds of partnering, right? That's the whole world of that. And to get good at that, what's actually required is that you start to understand and appreciate where's the other person coming at it from. So what matters to David in this, if I want you to do something, not just, you can be lit up by what I see and just be generally inspired, but until you see something for yourself, you don't say yes, you don't start to take action. So that's engage is the second part, naturally flows from the inspire piece. Then we've got to begin to plan. And the thing about planning, and this is really well covered in the Scaling Up book and in Stephen Covey's work and others, well covered by General Eisenhower and Winston Churchill and people like that. It's the act of planning that matters the most, more than the plan itself. Because if you think about the plan, the moment you do it is almost immediately becoming obsolete because of all the factors and things happening in the world. So planning, regularly planning is the next piece after we're ready to take action. And the last piece is coaching. Coaching is about keeping people in the game. Keeping people from giving up, keeping them looking for new approaches. So people get inspired, they say yes, they start to take action, they start to plan their work, and then shit goes wrong. Things fail, it doesn't go as planned, we get discouraged. Coaching reminds people, then back around the flywheel, of what they were inspired by, what they said yes to, what it means for them. We replan and we get back in the game again. So that's why it's a flywheel, because it keeps working and building momentum over time.
Yep. And then it just keeps on going, almost like a habit, right? A good habit, right?
Now, in each of those areas, there's work to do, skills to develop, breakthroughs to have.
Yeah. Well, you got to constantly add wind to it. Otherwise the flywheel is going to stop, right?
Yeah. 100%.
So, by the time an entrepreneur gets to you, they've gone through the startup phase, maybe 2-3 years into it, let's say they're doing $5-10 million. And this is just an example. I know they come in at different ranges, but what is kind of the common place where they're at? Like, why are they coming to you? Have they just kind of run out of their gut instincts, or what's going on?
Really, really clear, simple, easy answer for that. But it took me a long time to find the simple, clear, easy answer. Mm-hmm. So the first piece is big ambition, right? So the people that I work with don't just want to double the business. In fact, doubling is hard work. Doubling is easy work if you're playing a 10x or 100x game. So the people that I most enjoy working with, that we start, they want to do something to change the world in some way. They want to be a billion-dollar company. They want to dominate their industry. They want to become the standard in their sector. Things like that warrant the kind of coaching that I do and many of the other scaling up coaches do. It's not the small touches and that kind of thing that warrant the kind of time and expense of our work. So that's the first thing. And then there's really two problems that they face in it. One, they realize they have really huge goals and they're not going to do it with all their present skills. So they're looking for something, and either one of two things. Either they started growing with big ambition and then they plateaued. That's a really common one. People are like, I was chugging along and then I like hit this flat spot. I don't know how to get growing again. So that's one. And that one's really motivating to a lot of people. Help me. And we focus particularly on the strategy for those folks. And then the others are, well, we've been growing. We are growing. We think we're going to keep growing, but things are a mess. I'm overwhelmed. My people aren't working hard enough. And those are the places where we're focused on people and execution. And then in some, we're looking at the cash side, like it's gotten hard to fund. I don't know how to get, like, that's usually an add-on. So it's either a big focus on strategy, getting growing again, or dealing with the growth with people and execution and a little bit of the cash tools.
No, that's fantastic. And then, so what are some of the first things that you do, like that, maybe the first 2 days to quote unquote stop the bleeding, right?
Well, so the first thing that I'm always doing is assessing what the situation is. A scaling up coach, different from other frameworks and things organized around growth and business ops, is helping you to figure out what to work on first. So there's not like an automatic, we're going to do this before that. However, there are about 5 things that we're initially going to start with in getting going in the business. We want to establish the core. Why do you do what you do? The purpose of the business, the why statement. We want to understand the values, the way that the company should be operating. Who are you for the marketplace? The brand promises is really critical. And then we want to have a clear, big goal. In fact, some of the people where our work with them has sort of faltered has been because they were unsettled or not fully committed to this big goal. So if we don't have that BHAG, Jim Collins' term for the big, hairy, audacious goal, then it gets really hard to figure out what to do. So we'll then go to work on those elements. Then we'll look at, do we have the right people to play this game? How are we executing? So we'll implement daily huddles and weekly meetings. We'll start doing quarterly planning and annual strategy sessions with them. All of those kinds of things are things that we do right in the beginning.
That's great. I love it. So, obviously Vern Harnish is, the original creator of this. I'm sure you and your team have helped him bring it to the next level. I'm thinking about like takeaways for some of our listeners, right? And I remember, back in the day, so I did Birthing of Giants, but the first year I started, they changed it to the Entrepreneurial Masters Program.
EP today.
Yeah.
If you're in the Entrepreneurs Organization or EO, today it's called EMP.
EMP. Yep. And so, and then I remember some of my classmates were saying that they got their masters from MIT. And I'm like, you have a master's, you have like a certificate, right? We spent 15 days over 3 years at MIT. So I have a certificate, right? So I'm very clear.
Overstating yourself.
Yes. Yeah. A little,
being a little boastful or can get you in such trouble with your credibility.
Not that entrepreneurs are ever full of puffery, but I'm very clear on my LinkedIn. It is an entrepreneurial certificate, right? So
for you. Better to be a little modest and downplay things.
Well, yeah. I mean, the MIT, just putting MIT there looks good enough, but be clear what it is. I don't have my master's, but so I remember reading the book Rockefeller Habits, which Vern wrote, which really changed the game for me, right? It was such a great book. I started doing daily huddles within my organization. We created the war room. We were all a lot of transparency. I followed everything. My team, my employees thought I was insane. But then, 6 months later, they thought I was brilliant because it all was working, right? We went from 1 million to 3 million in a year and a half. So, with no outside funding, and it was a great lifestyle business. And then we sold it. So now the book that, it's kind of Rockefeller Habits 2.0 is scaling up, right? Which is much more detailed, intense, I would say. So those are two great books that I would recommend to read. What are some other books? If you were to give some of your new clients a holiday gift, and it was going to be a couple of books, what would those books be?
Well, I think it's useful to take them by decision area. So in the world of the people side of things, right? Vern has a new book out, Scaling Up Compensation. What do we pay people? That's become a really critical thing. The Who hiring book is a great book to read. It's an update or an upgrade of the original top grading system for recruiting and developing the best people. So those are a couple easy books to read. I think a fantastic book to read is The 1 Minute Manager, Ken Blanchard's book, right on the basic things. Becoming a Better Coach, The Coaching Habit, Michael Bungay Stanier is a great book to read. And then one of the ones that I use a great deal is The 3 Laws of Performance, where we look at the connection of how people perform and how leaders interact with people. And their language and that kind of thing. So those are some books on the people side of things. On the strategy side of things, we start to intersect that with some other book. One of the books that I really love a lot is Uncommon Service in here, which says in order to be the best in the world at something, we have to be willing to suck at something. And so that's one. There are others that you don't necessarily need to read, but you could get the idea of, like Never Eat Alone, right? I think is a simple, good idea. It's maybe a little more challenging last year with COVID and eating out and meeting up and things like that. But the idea of connecting with human beings, understanding influencers and things like that, I think is really critical. A very hard book to read, but the idea is interesting and core to us to go along maybe with Uncommon Service is the idea of blue ocean strategy, right? So not such a great, easy to digest book, but the idea of let's not compete where everyone is competing. Let's find another place to play that nobody is paying attention to, another patch of water, right? Red ocean where the sharks are churning up the prey. Let's go over to the blue ocean and the clear water and look somewhere else. So those are some interesting books in that world. Simple Numbers is a book on the cash side of things. And the execution side, the Rockefeller Habits, but really the execution section of our book is really good. But there are others that relate really well, like 2-second lean, right? So lean practices are really useful, but they can become overly, jargon laden or that kind of thing. But Paul Akers' book, 2-Second Lean, it focuses on making it a simple, regular habit. And I love Checklist Manifesto on the idea of using checklists to transform your processes and be more consistent with the delivery on things. So those are in kind of all 4 decision areas, some things that immediately come to mind.
I haven't heard of the Checklist Manifesto, and I am such a checklist guy. So I think that's my next book. Thank you.
Checklist Manifesto is a fantastic read because it tells some great stories. We go from Van Halen to major hospitals and the B-17 program. We understand the modern checklist and the evolution of it. It's a fascinating book. Atul Gawande, the author.
Awesome. No, thank you for that. And I've read a lot of those other books that definitely game changing. So thank you for that. How about you, Bill? You got a book in you?
So we've been working on a book for a number of years now, and it's to do with this leadership flywheel. I've been talking about it more. We've had a number of people go through a pilot multi-month course developing in all the 4 skills of the leadership flywheel and really reinventing themselves as a leader, based on, or kind of built on, that idea that we learned from Marshall Goldsmith, that what got you to this point isn't what's going to take you beyond, right? So we want to reinvent ourselves and then develop these 4 disciplines of leadership that are in the flywheel. So that's the work that we'll be doing out. I don't know the title of that yet, but there's a draft of it sitting over across the office on the other side there.
Yeah, I figured you got a book in you, so that's good. That's good to know, and I'm sure it'll be very valuable. Well, Bill, thank you so much for sharing some heartbeats with me today. Truly appreciate it. Gave it some great nuggets to the Gonzo family. If people want to get in touch with you, what are the best ways to reach out and learn more?
So easy to find me, scalingcoach.com.
Scalingcoach.com.
That's the way to find me. Yep.
Very good. I'm surprised Vern didn't snatch it up for himself, but good for you. Excellent, Bill. Well, hey, great conversations today. And, if any entrepreneurs are looking to scale up their business to the next level, I'm sure Bill would welcome a discovery phone call with you to see if you both are a right fit for each other, to see if he can help you. So, Bill, thank you so much. Wish you the best. And I know that you're going to be, continue to scaling up yourself and sending you lots of continued massive success your way.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. And thank you, Gonzo family, for sharing your heartbeats with us today. Always appreciate your time. There are so many, I don't know if there's millions of podcasts out there yet, but definitely hundreds of thousands. So thank you so much for joining us today. Truly appreciate it. I'm honored. Wishing you a great day. And please, don't forget, rate, review us. It totally helps us. It allows us to get out to more people. So thank you so much. And make sure to stay awesome.